You talk about the next generation maybe not wanting it, and so they encash it instead of passing on the jewelry. Do you think the next generation values the Peranakan heritage? Does it matter to them?
Okay, I find that whether you value or how you feel about the culture is very individual. It's just like for myself, I collect Peranakan jewelry, but my brother and sister, they don't bother about any Peranakan heritage item. To them is that you just get on with life. So it depends on the individual person.
Do you then see a dwindling in interest in the Peranakan culture as the generations roll on?
Well, I think they are starting to realize that the culture is unique because there is a lot of publicity about Peranakan culture. We have a museum, in 2008, I think it was opened, the Peranakan Museum. So a lot of school children have been there. So from there on is a good start. They will start to question their parents. What is Peranakan culture? If they are Peranakan, the parents, the grandparents will explain to them, and it is building is a sort of a foundation for them. So I think that is good.
I think the younger generation, the next generation, as you put it, right? I think they are very interested from the people that I've met. There's this awakening that they feel different, they feel special, they feel unique. They are trying to identify some parts of themselves, and they come to me and says, my great-grandmother used to, I've got a picture of her in a baju panjang. Does that make me a Peranakan? So I think the younger generation are finding as many little evidence that they belong to this unique culture. On the other hand, is the parents and the grandparents who then play it down and says, oh, last time they were very Peranakan, now we are no more Peranakan. And I would say, how come last time you can become Peranakan, now you can un-Peranakan yourself, is it? They say, yeah, because we don't speak Baba Malay anymore, we don't eat we don't cook in the same way, and I say, look, my own mother, who I believe is as Peranakan as you can get, never wore a kebaya, sarong kebaya in her life. And I asked her, Mom, I said, well, how come you got no sarong kebaya? I remember going to the tailors with you and you're making the Chinese shampoo. And her answer was very simple. Why would I want to look like my grandmother? So it wasn't even fashionable for her at that time. But of course, things are now coming back. So I tell my friends, or my visitors, I say, look, my neighbor, my Angmo neighbor, wears batik shirt, likes Peranakan food, collects a bit of Peranakan antiques, but that doesn't make him a Peranakan to me, right? So I think it's more than just the external lifestyle, you call it, or the dressing. It's got to be something more than that. It's got to be at least a certain DNA or bloodline, I believe.
What is a Peranakan today? How would you define a Peranakan?
For me, and again, I qualify, this is my interpretation, is for me, you are a Peranakan if you can trace one of your ancestors being an offspring of the intermarriage at that time.
Do the others concur with that?
Technically, yeah. Technically,
because Peranakan means local born, right?
Huh?
Because Peranakan means local born, isn't it? So it means local born. That's where you have to have an intermarriage with a local man, well, mainly women here in those days. The Chinese immigrants, those who couldn't make their wealth, didn't have the money to go back to a shame. And apparently, I remember, I think, was it in Mark's book or something, that if within 1 year, if you don't go back, you're going to be beheaded. So that's why, I think it was a friend of ours.
Is that right, Dad?
Oh, sorry, not. Maybe somebody told me a story that he couldn't find his.
I think it sounds right. I kind of made me remember it. Yeah.
The Chinese were sent out here. If they don't go back within that 1 year, they'll be beheaded. And that's why I think someone's ancestry, they went back and then they couldn't find his family's name, and then realized that because the folks never went back, the business was so good in Malay in those days, and then a lot of the rich ones had the second and third wives, right? I mean, they still have their first wife there. Some of them were brought here to Asia, but most of them were just left back in Swatao and then have their second wife here and third wife.
Sometimes the intermarriage between the men and the women are so far long ago that we could hardly trace whether there's any Malay ancestors who are married to our Chinese ancestor. Like for myself, I find that it's very difficult because all the names, even as we trace right to the 1700s, they are all Chinese names. So it's quite difficult to, for sure know whether who is the first.
But if you see a lot of the photographs, like my great grandmother's photographs, they don't look Chinese.
Yeah.
They look very Malay, or there's a mix of something.
I believe in Indonesia, a lot of the Indonesian Peranakans, they are of mixed marriages, right, because they look very mixed. But over this part of the world, I think it could have happened, a long time ago, not in the recent years.
Yes, it is true. No one's really able to determine exactly where and when the intermarriage actually happened. That's why the research for my book is actually quite significant, because we actually identify the point where these couples marry and have their their children, where they become a Peranakan. And that's I don't believe anybody else has done that or not able to do it, because it goes back too far. We are able to do it because the records are still kept from the 1830s. But many Peranakan families go back to the 1700s, and in some cases go back to the 1600s. Now, under those circumstances, you're not going to be able to get not be able to identify who the people are, or have the marriage records and birth records and that sort of thing. So you're always going to not know